2015 Urban Design Awards. How are you guys? I'm so excited that y'all are here. I'm Jill Marks from the City of Fort Collins Communications Office. With me are Mayor Wade Troxel and Deputy City Manager Jeff Mihalik to kick off tonight's program.
Thanks, Jill. Good evening, everybody. Oh, come on, I saw you at the bar. Good evening, everybody. Great. Thank you all very much for coming here tonight. I think you'll agree that urban design is a wonderful thing for us to be celebrating this evening. So there's so many things to love about Fort Collins, and we know what they are. The festivals, our beautiful natural landscape, but also the outstanding architecture all throughout the city of Fort Collins. I think that a lot of the excellent architecture started in our downtown, but as we review the award recipients this evening, I think we can agree that the excellent architecture extends all the way throughout our city, whether it's Harmony Road Corridor, Ziegler, Mason, and so on, and you all should be very proud of your accomplishments. The other thing I'm very thankful for about Fort Collins is whenever my family, friends, or colleagues come to Fort Collins, I can go anywhere in this beautiful city, walk up and down the street, and be very proud of every single development that happens in our city. And people have asked me, particularly professional colleagues, boy, you guys must have some really aggressive architectural standards. And I say, well, yeah, that's true. Let's be honest about it. But what I think we have more than anything else is a very deep commitment to strong urban design and to sense of place, and making the extra time and effort to make sure that all of our developments, whether it's lighting, landscaping, architectural elements, are all very, very well done. And as you look around the room, whether you're a staff member, an elected official, a builder, a developer, an architect, an engineer, and I could go on, it's all because of everybody in this room that we enjoy such tremendous urban fabric that we're proud of. So please give yourselves all a round of applause. So for those of you that are not familiar with this program, the Urban Design Awards actually happen every 2 years, and we put out a very broad call of entries. This year, I'm happy to tell you that we received 34 entries from all across Fort Collins in many different categories. Our selection committee clearly has a tough job, because many of those awards are worthy of recognition, but they can only pick 9 or 10 that are truly the best. So congratulations to the award recipients. It takes a lot of time and commitment to be on the selection committee, so if you'll bear with me, and many of the folks are in the room, I do want to recognize each and every one of those tonight. First is Mike Kephart. Mike founded Kephart Architects, an architectural design firm in the greater Denver area. Mike managed it for over 30 years before retiring to pursue other interests. Is Mike here? Let's hear it for him anyway. Jeff Schneider, who is the president of Armstead Construction and a member of the City of Fort Collins Planning and Zoning Board. Is Jeff here? Thank you, Jeff. Ron Sladek, I know Ron is here. I've been before Ron before. He's the founder and president of Tatanka Historical Consulting and is also serving as the chair of the city's Landmark Preservation Commission. Where's Ron? There he is. Yeah. Jane Choi, who previously taught at Harvard's Graduate School of Design and is now an assistant professor of landscape architecture at CSU, and is a founder and principal of C2 Studio Landscape Architecture. Is Jane here? There's Jane. Thank you, Jane. Brian Janonis has a lengthy background in civil engineering and served as the executive director of the City of Fort Collins Utilities until retiring last year. I know I saw Brian somewhere. There he is. Thanks, Brian. Lori Kadrich is the Director of Planning, Development, and Transportation Services for the City of Fort Collins. Is Lori here? There she is. Thanks, Lori. and George Brayleg, who is a founding principal of RB+B Architects, where he spent over 35 years as principal. Where's George? And last but not least, I know he's not here, the man, the myth, the legend, Cameron Gloss, who's the planning manager for the city of Fort Collins. So he's in Europe, I think, so let's give it really loud for Cameron so he can hear us across the pond. And lastly, I really do have the privilege to place a special emphasis on the Hall of Fame Award, and we'll be presenting those this evening. That is, let's just call it a Lifetime Achievement Award for continued and significant contributions to local urban design over time. The committee said it's a clear choice, RB+B Architects. Tonight we're recognizing all three founders for their outstanding work, so let's hear it for them. And now I have the distinct privilege of introducing the mayor of the city of Fort Collins, Wade Troxel. Let's hear it for Wade.
Thank you, Jeff, and what a great day it is in Fort Collins. And I'm thrilled to be here and see this work and that's been done, and congratulations to all the winners. I'd first like to recognize the city council members that are here: Ray Martinez, Bob Overbeck, Gino Campana, and Ross Kniff. Thanks for being here. You have good support from your city and your city council, and we really appreciate you being here tonight for these awards. This program depends on the work being done and great design work that's being done in our city, and taking the time and effort to enter these projects that we'll recognize tonight on behalf of the city. I appreciate all those that have taken the effort, and also want to thank everyone who entered the projects. You know, Fort Collins is a wonderful place, and I talk often about creative innovation. You know, in June, I had the honor to be in Washington, D.C. at the Smithsonian at the National Museum of American History, where Fort Collins was recognized as the current version of Places of Innovation, with 5 other cities that have had recognized innovation in the past, and Fort Collins is being recognized in the 2010s looking forward. I think that's indicative of where we are today as a community. A couple of weeks ago, we had Peter Kageyama here, and he's the author of For the Love of Cities, and talking about communities and people and how people express their love for their communities. And he was talking about Fort Collins being a 9 going to a 10. And I think just the love of our community is expressed a lot through its people, through each and every one of us, but very much through those that spend their careers in providing a wonderful built environment and design for those buildings that we enjoy. So truly creating a sense of place. And thinking about design excellence and architectural excellence, that's what we're recognizing here tonight. I think Fort Collins is on the cusp of our golden era in lots of ways. And I think in terms of design excellence, architectural excellence, and the sense of place, I think tonight we're raising the bar, and I think we're going to only see more of that in the future. And I thank you for laying that groundwork for the future. This city is as good as it gets, and I appreciate the people in this room and the efforts that they make every day. You help make the space that we live in, and at times it might be taken for granted, but it's wonderful, and it keeps this place wonderful. I want to congratulate the award winners, and I'm looking forward to hearing about your projects and the new Hall of Fame inductees. For that, I'm going to hand it back to Jill, and she's going to guide us through tonight's proceedings. Thank you very much, and thank you for all you're doing for our great community.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to invite you and Jeff to stay up here with me to present tonight's awards. Here are the way things are going to work this evening. So please feel free to get up and get food or go to the bar during the presentation. I'll call up each award winner to accept their award, and then they'll give a quick presentation about their project. At the end of each presentation, additional team members may be invited to join the presenter center stage, where Mayor Troxel and Jeff Mihalik will present them the award, and there'll be a photo opportunity. We'd like to ask anyone coming up to the stage to enter on the right and exit on the left. After all the project awards have been presented, we will move on to the prestigious Hall of Fame category. Okay, let's get started. We're going to begin the evening with 3 awards in the architecture category for buildings that demonstrate design excellence through their unique relationship with and contribution to their local surroundings. For the first architecture award, I'd like to invite Jim Cox of Architecture Plus up for his firm's work on the Beau's Pizza renovation done in 2014. The committee noted the way this pays homage to the old Ford dealership in a past era. The project brings life to this corner and extends downtown improvements further along North College.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Well, good afternoon, good evening. This is quite a challenge, I think, for the city to take on, urban design awards, because usually urban design is something where you kind of look ahead to the future and so forth. And I think you all passed, last 2 weeks or so, Yogi Berra passed away. I think most of you are familiar with Yogi Berra and his quotes and things. And he made a quote about these kinds of things of looking ahead to the future. And he said, "Prediction is difficult, especially about the future." And typical Yogi. A famous architect, Julia Morgan, said, "Architecture is a visual art, and the buildings speak for themselves." With that in mind, I'll be quick with my speech and let the photos of the building do the speaking. For Beau's, it took a lot of people to make this a successful project. And I'd quickly like to thank a few of them. Beau's owner, Chip Bear, for his vision, moving a successful business north of LaPorte and funding what appeared to be a bottomless pit. Literally. The contractor, Empire Carpentry, Kevin Murray and Rick Massey, and Kevin's joined me here. Yes, he has. And his subcontractors who worked tirelessly reconstructing the building. Then our team of local consultants. We had Mike McDonald and Steve Carpenter with JVA. They were the structural engineers. And Matt Dahl, the mechanical engineers with the Ballard Group. And Randy Bremer, the electrical engineer with APS. And I want to give a special big thanks also to the people of DDA and the DDA board for their facade grant, which helped take some of the sting out of rebuilding the exterior facade. And I believe I saw Matt come in, and I think Matt's here. Matt, yeah, okay. And I don't, anybody else from the DDA? Okay, I can't quite see, but that's good. So I just want to mention that even though this building is historically a non-contributing building, we discovered that once the stucco was removed and the original brick exposed, that was essentially a time that the appearance of the building showed itself as it originally, close to what it originally was. And this look was embraced by Beau's. Thus, it was important that our design maintain as closely as possible the character and charm of the original building. However, looks can be deceiving, and I'll now turn this over to Kevin to tell you about the construction process and what an effort it was to save this building. Again, I want to thank Beau's for investing in this building so that it can be saved and become an attractive gateway building to the new city and county office buildings. Kevin?
Hi, all. Hey, just looking at the pictures here, I just want to point out that this was the original Ford dealership and garage for Northern Colorado. You can see a little bit lower there that they added a gas station, which I wanted to point out, 19 cents a gallon. Let's go back there. And as they moved on, you can still see that indentation on the building now. They also ended up painting it white, and then Ford left the building, and they turned it into small bars, clothing, offices, and drugstore, and all that. And at that point, to hide the old openings and the painted brick, they stuccoed over it. Then, although this is a historic building, the changes on the building made it non-contributing to the whole historic old town. In historic buildings, there's a stage called Discovery. And while the stucco was removed, Discovery showed there were white walls of lead paint, undermined structural headers, floor and beams that have failing outer weathered brick. You see that kind of that lower picture there. It was time to reassess whether we even wanted to save the building or demolish it. And after long discussion, we supported the exterior and the roof, and we then removed the outer weathered brick, and turned it around and placed it back in again.
I just want to add, that's every brick on that exterior facade.
That's why they're no longer white, because they're lead paint, you don't want to mess with them. With new engineering throughout, the building was again made sound. The photo shows the exterior of the brick veneer removed and ready to reinstall up there on the scaffold. When we came up short on brick, the DDA graciously offered their stash of local soft brick that was actually made in Fort Collins 100 years ago. On their part, Bojo's gritted their teeth and looked towards getting the final product done, which we really appreciate. Of note, we were able to keep the original Ford elevator. There's only 3 of these supposedly left in the United States. And the pickup truck is actually a unique Ford model that Bojo's owns. Jim, I was wondering if you want to talk about the actual finished product.
Okay, let's see here. What button do we pick? The green one? Okay. Okay, so what Bojo's, we worked with them closely, and what we wanted to do, and they wanted to do, was create a large seating area for a few hundred people, but yet somehow keep it somewhat intimate. So we broke it down into various seating areas, as you can see here. And this is back where that original truck is, and then moving on here to the next. They wanted to have the indoor-outdoor relationship, so not only did they open the garage doors to the outside, to the patio, the bar is an extension too. So part of the bar is inside, another part is outside. And again, you can see here the inside of the bar and looking outside, so you can see this indoor-outdoor relationship and how the space, even though seats a couple hundred people, it's broken into smaller entities so that you feel somewhat comfortable and not in this large canvas room. Then the exterior here, you can see, again, recreated the exterior here, and we put the entrance back on this LaPorte Street.
I think 19 cents a gallon.
Yeah, 19 cents a gallon, Conoco. And that's about it. So thank you very much, and we...
Thank you so much, Jim and Kevin. And next, I'd like to invite Jeffrey Arrett with the Architects Studio to come up and present their 2013 project, Canyon Place. The committee noted the high quality in building materials and the way the design relates to the contemporary makeover of the renovated Lincoln Center across the street, and also to the setting in the older neighborhood.
So Canyon Place is a 5-story, 55,000 square foot office building situated just north of the Lincoln Center at the corner of Magnolia and Meldrum Street. And the site for this building is actually one that was assembled from a series of smaller parcels, and you can see the outline of it here. There was an existing 3-story building to the west that was to remain. So our challenge was to figure out how to put 55,000 additional square feet onto this rather oddly shaped site. And initially, our approach was to really place an emphasis on the pedestrian. We recognized that this building would be home to some OtterBox employees. And just like their headquarters to the north, they generate a lot of pedestrian traffic, a lot of movement of people to and from these buildings and in between them as well. So we wanted to preserve a corridor for pedestrian movement. And the concept of this urban plaza between a new building and the existing building emerged. And in addition to that, it really gave us an opportunity to preserve a visual and a physical corridor to the Lincoln Center to the south, which we recognized as an important cultural resource. This is how the site originally started. There was a small 2-story building on the east portion of the property that was cleared to make way for the project. And you can see the 3-story building to the west beyond. And this is the after of the same view with, you can see a corner-facing restaurant and patio space that strives to engage the corner. And a view with the plaza on the left-hand side of the image here. And one of the elements we used on the facade was this continuous horizontal band, which really created a sense of pedestrian scale, and at times it emerges and forms some deep canopies that cover entrances and protect the pedestrian. It was also important to us that we maintained a sense of transparency on the ground floor to really connect the interior of the building to the streetscape, and you can see that here on the lower level corner of the lobby. And the palette of materials, just like the context around us, was a combination of more traditional textural materials and more contemporary metals and glass, aluminum. So with that, I'll conclude the presentation. I want to make sure I have time to acknowledge our team. Brinkman Construction was the builder on this project, and as always, they delivered a phenomenal project of great quality, and they did so with just real professionalism and passion, and we appreciate that. A project like this isn't a success without a developer and an owner with a big vision and a big commitment to making it happen, and this was Blue Ocean Enterprises. Our design team partners were Landworks Design, who helped us with all the hardscape and landscape. Northern Engineering did the civil engineering. Blue Ocean's interior design team, Laura and her group, did a phenomenal job on the interiors, and I know the interiors have garnered some awards of their own, so congratulations on that. KL&A did the structural engineering and brought these crazy ideas to reality. And AE Associates did the mechanical engineering, and APS the electrical engineering. Also wanted to thank the city staff, planning, zoning, engineering, and building departments for their assistance navigating those processes, as well as the Downtown Development Authority for their support. Thank you. Very good.
Yeah. You can stand on the chair.
All right.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you to your whole team. For the final award in this category, I'd like to invite Randy Shortridge of AU Workshop up to share his insights into the Encompass Technologies building just finished down on Block 1 of Fort Collins' original town plat. This is down by the river, done earlier this year. The committee saw the challenges in this sensitive historic location. They discussed the fit and the materials and feel the project will stand up well in the test of time.
Thanks very much. This project really began with a guy named Rich Shannon, who many of you know, who said that he'd been working in the River District a long time and really thought there was a good opportunity with this client that he'd found called Encompass Technologies, that they might like to maybe build a building right down next to the river. And those of you who've been around Fort Collins for a long time know that was always where the batch plant was. It was never a really good, friendly neighbor to the river. Of course, the River District itself spent a long time in a lot of different complexions over the years, and never were they about downtown. It was always sort of literally the other side of the tracks. And Encompass said, well, there's this great site. Maybe this 1 acre site could be turned into a really nice mixed-use building. And we met with them and did some charrettes and started thinking about this project. The challenge was to create a building that was going to be forward-thinking about what the district might become someday, and also think about how it could have an urban character and at the same time transition to a character that addressed the river. So the building itself wanted to have literally two pieces. So it had the side closest to Old Town, which is the taller part, and it was intended to be just a really good urban, street-friendly building. And the second piece, via an open passageway, meant to twist a little bit and reduce in scale and become more river friendly. And so that's what this diagram on the screen talks about. You can almost sum up the entirety of the design process in this diagram and a plan diagram, and you can see how the building tries to do those things. One big point I'd like to make about downtown Fort Collins is that originally when Avery platted the city, it was based on a 25 and 50 foot lot module. And so all the buildings in Old Town follow that module. When you look at buildings, every one of them is either 12 and a half, which was if someone could only afford half a module, or 25 feet, 50 feet, 75 feet, even a little bit larger like the Northern Hotel. But we thought about that right from the beginning. How can we make a building that respects that module? And that's what those blue vertical lines talk about. So that module sort of begins to drive how the building goes. And I could talk about this for a long time. I love to talk about this stuff. But I'll stop. But then you can see in the plan how the building twists just a little bit and begins to address the riverfront. Most of the parking is actually underneath that purple part, which is the ground floor of the building. And then here's what it looks like today. You can see the open passage through the middle that's separating the two parts. The ground floor is retail, the second floor is Encompass Technologies offices, and then the third and fourth floor are apartments. Some views of the building. And then Encompass Technologies spaces up next to the river edge with an outdoor terrace looking out over the river. And then from the backside, there's an outdoor terrace that hopefully a future restaurant will have and be able to spill down via this sort of informal amphitheater down to the river's edge with naturalized landscaping. And then when the water was high in the spring, here's what the building looked like from the river. The photographer actually waded into the water to get the picture. And a view at one of Encompass's events from up in the air with the ubiquitous drone shot. Of course, we couldn't have done this project, I couldn't have done this project without Jason Kersley, who really did most of the work. I talk about urban design strategies and sketch, and Jason really is the heart of the office, and of course all the rest of the guys in the office. Brinkman Partners was an invaluable asset to the team, making sure that our somewhat crazy ideas sometimes could get executed and stay on budget. Besides Rich Shannon, Jeff Jensen was a really important part of the management of the process. And then, of course, Kent Jonathan and Kim O'Neill, who were a great developer, one of the best I've ever had. They actually listened all the time to what we had to say and rarely said no. And then with the city, the Downtown Development Authority was very helpful in getting a lot of those extra details on the public frontages. And then, of course, BHA Landscape Design and Northern Engineering and the other engineering subcontractors were all invaluable as well. So if the folks who were involved in the project could come up here and share with me in this award, I'd appreciate it.
Thanks to Randy and your whole team. In the sustainable design category, we're happy to call on Bob Hosanna to tell us about the expansion and makeover of the old power plant building and the new Powerhouse Energy Campus. Although I was not on the selection committee myself, this project is near and dear to my heart because of my time working for CSURF during the final phase of construction of the building. I saw what an incredible effort it took for everyone involved during those final months before the grand opening. This is a project the committee recognized for contributions across all categories and decided this award was the best way to recognize all of its features.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here tonight. I'd like to thank, on behalf of the whole team, the City of Fort Collins and especially for creating programs like this that really make this town special, a special place to be and sets us apart from other towns. It really speaks to the forward thinking that this town has exhibited ever since I've lived here. And it continues to push the envelope into the future and making this a special place. The same forward-thinking attitude was evident in 1935 when the Fort Collins power generation plant was commissioned. It was considered to be a state-of-the-art facility for its time, especially considering the size of Fort Collins, and Fort Collins at the time, not being a big city, had to have its own power plant was a pretty out-of-the-box thought, and that forward thinking, I think, has carried forward even since then. There's a lot I could say tonight about the buildings, but tonight I'd like to speak specifically about the sustainable aspect of the project. When the design work started, my excitement grew. We were charged with creating one of the top research facilities in the world on a modest budget, and we were expected to achieve a LEED Platinum rating. The mechanical aspect of the project is exciting, and I'll spend some time talking about that, but the first part of this project that to me spoke to sustainability was the fact that we were taking what used to be the state-of-the-art power generation facility, repurposing it into today's facility, which is studying power generation and studying alternative systems. And it's a perfect continuation of this facility's history. So it's sustainable on a different level than we might think of every day. It's like repurposing the energy that was embedded in the project. So that early on was exciting as a designer to think that you could be responsible for this type of transformation. The building today is a living laboratory. Building sciences are being studied here, and building systems can be observed and modified. Dr. Wilson, director of the lab, said early on, if we move into the project or move into the building when it's done and it operates 100% correctly, we have not done our job. We were asked to push the envelope, explore things that hadn't been done before, and with the team that we had people that could do that, and it wasn't always comfortable by any means, but we hung in there and pushed the envelope every chance we got. The building systems that were ultimately decided on were not decided on by following a straight line. I'm not sure how many of you have had the opportunity to work with a research scientist, but if you ever get a chance, I'd suggest doing it. It's probably not going to be easy. But there was nothing that was considered off limits in our discovery during the design process. Every building material, every method, every system that were familiar with was challenged. And I think the end product shows examples of that as you walk through the building. It's very evident that this building is not your typical type of facility. I always thought a 3-year-old asks the question why a lot. Well, they don't ask nearly as many whys as these research guys did as we were working on this. First example of that was Brian Wilson and I, Dr. Wilson and I went to the Green Build conference in Montreal, and we were going across the convention floors looking at all the vendors from around the world that claimed to have green products, et cetera. And our focus that day was on lighting and HVAC systems. We stopped at a LED lighting booth. I don't think this person had any idea what he was in for when Dr. Wilson started drilling him. But in the end, the question came up for Dr. Wilson, and he posed to this person, is why do these diodes, these LED diodes, have so much material around them, being such a small energy source? And the obvious question was that it's to dissipate the heat. Brian Wilson didn't like this answer. And at that point in time, we started on a journey that resulted in custom lighting, working with China, developing a lighting system that had never been done before. And it all was because Brian didn't like the idea that this bulb had to be cooled by a mass. Yeah, exactly. So we knew early on that evaporative cooling would be part of this project because evaporative cooling makes sense in Colorado's climate. We ended up with 8-inch thick radiant slabs that are charged during the night through miles of slab tubing to anticipate the next day's weather forecasting. So they're actually using forecasting to charge the slabs at night so that they can ride the requirements for the next day. Due to the high efficiency building skin that we produced, these slabs, you can't change the temperature of a slab very quickly. It's got to happen over a period of time. Because of the envelope of the building, the high efficiency envelope, the swings of the temperature within the building are very minimal so that this slab doesn't have to follow these huge swings that typically happen inside of a building. And typically in a building, we're cooling a building 85 to 90% of the year because of the heat load inside. Well, to wrap up, back to this little diode, this LED diode that Brian wanted to save from the heat. The lighting system ended up being a 24-volt low voltage LED system throughout the building. And it ultimately was attached to the building superstructure, which is the main beams and the columns. And the reason we were able to do this is we ended up with this radiant cooling that drops cold air from above, from the ceiling. This slab was attached to the superstructure. This superstructure consequently was cooled from the slab. We were able to put the LED lights, very simply the kind of things you can buy at Home Depot in strips. We had a magnetic attachment that was manufactured just for us, that we put the strip up there with a magnet to the cold superstructure, and consequently the building turned into a giant heat sink that takes all the energy off of these LED lights, all the heat. So it's an example of the whole process coming together as one big system. And that there's many things I could talk about on this. I got to stop with the time, but fascinating for me as a designer to work on, and I really appreciate the honor and the recognition, and the whole team appreciates it too. Thank you.
Our next category is urban fragments. This category is meant to recognize small-scale features or parts that contribute in their own small way to enjoyment, appreciation, and interest in our city environment. I'd like to call up Jason Kersley again to accept an award for the sign at the AU Workshop office. This item created a lot of discussion for the committee. This particular urban fragment was so special that someone saw the drawings for the sign on your website and called on your office to submit it for an Urban Design Award because the drawings were so intriguing. The committee appreciated all of the effort.
I think so. All right, well, thank you. And Randy mentioned earlier about Encompass Technologies being the visionary and heading to the River District. Well, we just rode their coattails and headed that way as well when we were looking for a place to locate our office. And that is what we're looking at is the sign for our office. So one of the things that we wanted to do here was let the materials of the sign be authentic. And the process was difficult because we were our own clients. So we were very critical about what we were doing. But the ideas and the whole process really were Randy and Spencer, who's also over standing on the sides here, going through the process. When we got to the design, we decided that how are we going to get this built? Who's going to do this? And what we quickly found out was that we had to do it ourselves, which was a great fit for our workshop name. The chance to get our hands dirty with something other than sitting at a desk and operating the mouse was exciting for us. Let's see if I can think. So one of the things that we thought about during the design was that the post would actually be a glulam beam section that we'd get from a scrap. Go back here, the lighting that we have backlighting the sign itself is actually recessed into that glulam beam, which we quickly figured that it was not something that we could do easily. So, on a beam that was already manufactured. So we thought, well, we're going to have to manufacture this beam ourselves. So we went and got the cedar and cut it all to the exact shape we wanted, so the beam at the end would fit perfectly with the design. Another thing about getting the manufactured glulam was it was going to be a pine, Douglas fir, or something to that effect, rather than what we actually wanted for the final finish was a cedar. So we went and got the cedar, and one of the reasons we wanted the cedar was because of the final finish, and we'll see that here in a second, I guess. We got Colorado Water Jet to water jet our logo into a 1/4-inch plate of steel. Again, going back to that, the material being what it is rather than some other finished thing on top of a substrate. And the other very complicated piece of this simple thing is the lighting, and we didn't want to hook it up to the building for electrical, so we devised the system of the solar panel, the small battery pack, and quickly found out that the 3.7 volt battery pack would not power the 12 volt lighting strips we got from IKEA. So we had to get, I think, Sarah. Oh, there's a step up transformer in the design there to allow for the battery packs to actually drive the lighting. So that was a whole project for us, not being electrical engineers within itself. And then my favorite part is playing with fire. So this is a technique called yakasugi. It's a Japanese technique to preserve wood. It's, again, the cedar is treated better this way rather than a fir. So this was again the reason we went with the cedar. It creates a protective layer for weather and just general. So again, here's after being very happy I got to burn some stuff. And there's a nice shot of the solar lighting. So again, Spencer, I think, builder, designer, all round guy, can do anything. So Randy Shortridge, business partner, bring those guys up, and thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much. I love your logo. The next category is my favorite, and it is for public spaces. This category is for projects that create or contribute to spaces that invite people to spend time and enjoy the sense of place in our city. We have 4 of these, and I'll start by calling up Stephanie Van Dyken with Ripley Design Incorporated. The district on Plum Street in Campus West transformed several blocks of rental houses into perhaps the most urban residential development in our city. And the design attention to the public sidewalk and entry courtyard areas gives a friendly feel that was appreciated by the selection committee.
Thank you. We certainly appreciate the recognition. After you work so many years on a project, it's really great to have a project turn out how you envisioned it and how you pictured it being. So we were thrilled. And in the beginning of every project, you always have a site visit. We were able to see native species in their natural treed habitat. And we also were able to observe the traditional movements of the students, although apparently they were nocturnal at this time. We did notice that they prefer exterior furniture rather than interior. So we took all of these things into mind when designing this project. Through the use of modern technology, we have Google, which is amazing, which can show us what it used to look like. What did this streetscape look like before this project came on? And on the right side of the photo, you can see that there's absolutely no sidewalk. The fences come right to the curb line practically. There's trees overgrown, hardly a bike lane, just not a very good corridor for moving students from the Campus West area into campus. And so in order to solve these constraints and make this place better for students, this is the end product. We were able to set the buildings back. We were able to add a nice tree lawn, sidewalks, planters, several layers of green on the streetscape, and providing just a much more enhanced corridor for these students. The project actually removed 13 different homes on 13 different lots in order to build this student housing project. And so that was no easy task. There are many other interesting points to this project. One is the detention, which we had the privilege, Northern Engineering, they're just amazing and helped us through figuring out how to put a swimming pool into a bathtub, basically. We have detention surrounding the swimming pool in this courtyard, where the brown areas you'll see when it rains, the permeable pavers allow stormwater to go into those areas, fill up the voids in between different layers of rock, and then making sure the swimming pool doesn't float away. All very, things logistically that were very challenging, but also rewarding at the same time. So those layers of rock, it's basically a big pit. What you're seeing here is the detention, not the swimming pool. And so in this detention area, all very nice straight engineered lines are layers of aggregate, which are then filled up. And then like the good landscape architects we we covered all those straight engineered lines with lots of curves and pretty finishes on top. And where you see the circle of green chairs in that circle, that's over top of the detention, and then the pool, and then detention basically surrounding that. So lots of really fun puzzles and pieces of the puzzle to put together on this project. Again, the streetscape, we wanted to add little details that kind of accentuate the area and provide amenities that maybe student housing developments don't normally have. So all of the front doors face Plum Street. The students walk right out onto the street rather than going into some hidden back alley somewhere. And then the courtyards, blending that area between public and private space. We wanted to make sure that as you walk down the street, you don't quite know what's off limits and what's on limits. And the courtyards are a great example of that. There, you can simply traverse through the public right-of-way onto the private property. And this is another example of that from the sidewalk looking into the courtyards. So like I mentioned, we had an absolutely amazing team. I also want to thank city staff. They were absolutely tremendous through this whole years-long process. Humphrey Partners was our architect, and the CEI built the project. And then Nick and Derek Anderson, great developers to work with. And then, of course, our engineer, Northern Engineering. Thank you.
Thank you to Stephanie and everyone involved. I know the students that I've lived fairly close to the district, and I'm always astonished that college students get to live in luxury like that, because it's a lot nicer than what I lived in. For our next Public Space Award, I'd like to call up artist Robert Tully. The Mason Express, or Max Transportation Corridor, is a transformative change for the city that involved a variety of challenges. The committee felt that the way public art was integrated into the whole design really enhanced the stations as public space.
This artwork came about for the city of Fort Collins and for the Transport Bus Company, partly because the Federal Transportation Authority encourages the integration of artwork into the design. They just feel the ridership on public transportation is increased because of the artwork. The artwork needs to be integrated. In other words, it's not freestanding sculpture or paintings. It has to be incorporated into a material that would be there anyway. And so after really a process of probably 4 years with a design team reviewing many ideas for artwork, we ended up with 3 types of art elements. In here you'll see a typical Max station. There's the light pole that has some integrated sculpture in it and also sound art. There's a glass windscreen that has artwork embedded in it. And then there's a small concrete bench that has a cast design in it. And this is another one of the stations. You'll see there's a different glass windscreen, the light post, and also the concrete bench. So together they're fairly simple elements, but the idea was to have enough going on that you knew you were in an aesthetic environment. Of course, the environment depended on a great project to begin with, and IBI Architecture designed the stations and a lot of the transportation planning, and it has won awards already just for that aspect of it. The light posts came about in community meetings we held with the University Group in particular. People wanted something a little different, something that would make the ride interesting. And so we thought about different types of, high-tech artwork, but things that would involve GPS and interactive screens. But artwork in a public transit setting needs to be really sturdy, dependable. So I had known of a sound artist, Jim Green, so I brought him in as a collaborator, and we thought we could add sound in into a transit system. And so each of these, along with the sculpted elements, if you stand within about 15 feet of the light post, you are in this bubble of interesting sounds. There's 23 sound files. Some of them have environmental sounds that we got from around the world, the sounds of cracking Arctic ice, sea lions, birds, water, rain, and we alternated those sounds with ones that we recorded ourselves. And those are things like a ratchet sprinkler from a park, people walking on gravel, the rattle of baseball bats together. So sounds, human-made sounds that we thought had a certain pace that fit in with the environmental sounds. It's on a random cycle, and it contributes a kind of a unique setting to a transit station. There are also the glass windscreens that respond to each neighborhood. This design is at the Spring Creek Station next to the Forest Service research offices. It's based on a dot pattern that they used to study forests. This is at the Swallow Station, just stemming straight from the name. Swallows. The simple concrete benches also are designed along with the glass windscreens. So this simple bench celebrates the seed bank at CSU. There were other elements such as this wayfinding device. The stations are set back from the cross streets, so we designed a marker to help very simply gesture that the station is set back. And then the 12 stations of the corridor end at the main South Transit Center. For that, I fabricated 33 granite relief panels. At the request of Transport, they celebrate the history of transportation in Fort Collins. So half the panels mark some feature of Fort Collins transportation, from stagecoaches to railroads on up. And then the other half are simply graphic designs that stem from that. So these kind of extensive, the 33 panels really help create a unique public space. And just to say a word or two about the sound art, which is a very unique sort of art form. I'll have Jim Green, who has done a number of projects around, like the laughing escalator at the Denver Convention Center, the DIA train announcements. He'll say just a word or two.
When I was in the 6th grade, everyone had to participate in the school choir, and we also had to be tested on our ability to sing. Well, it was determined that I couldn't sing, and so I was put in a group called the Listeners. And on the night of the choir, we were distributed throughout the choir and told not to sing, but just lip sync the songs. So since then, I've used sound as art for over 30 years. And I'd like to thank the city for the opportunity to work on this very unique sound project that spans 5 miles. So that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert and Jim. I love the sound art at MAX stations because it's like you're suddenly transported to a spa while waiting for the bus. Next, I'd like to call Mike McBride with BHA Design for the backyard at Odell Brewing Company. The bottom line with urban design is making places where people love to be. If you've been to this place or even driven by on any afternoon of the week, you can see why it was so easy for the committee to recognize this project with an award. There's no denying it's a wonderful spot to be on a beautiful day.
All right, thanks, Jill. I had to write mine down so I don't babble up here. But during the latest expansion of the Odell Brewing Company, the brewers needed a world-class beer garden to go with their world-class beer. They built a campus that reflects their values as a company: sustainability, distinctiveness, and a relaxed, comfortable lifestyle. Trying to capture the culture of such a unique company, such as Odell Brewing, in their built environment, is the mission of all designers that have the privilege of working with them. They were inspired by the remarkable craft brewery patios throughout the country and beer gardens of the old world, and even taking the best of Fort Collins, from the precious small spaces of Cafe Vino to the magnificent flower displays of Old Town Square. The backyard at Odell Brewing Company features an iconic fire pit that captures the most beautiful seasons in Colorado. Plenty of flexible seating options in unique, comfortable spaces for the enjoyment of local bands or just watching a game of cornhole. Pervious pavers with subsurface storage are integrated throughout the patio spaces to mitigate for needed detention storage on site. Areas for food trucks, larger audiences, games, and fire lane access were also needed necessities. And of course, that distinct Colorado spirit that permeates throughout, with materials and accents that bring in the visual portfolio that is part of their DNA. Today, the backyard is at once the attraction to show off to your visiting friends and the comfortable patio that can be your go-to Friday afternoon. But how does it perform as a public space? Fort Collins has their heartbeat, and that is in the pride and love of their local businesses. A company such as Odell Brewing only acts as a mirror for the community that it serves. Without those values instilled in the community, their ownership over a space such as the backyard doesn't happen. From bike-friendly to family-friendly to dog-friendly, everyone feels comfortable in the backyard. Really, the biggest fault of the backyard is that it provides such a perfect canvas for the obligatory beer selfie. That is oh so appropriate once you've had that first sip or last sip of loose leaf, my personal favorite. I just want to thank everyone that was involved in the design. I want to thank Rebecca Spears with RV+B Architects for the opportunity to be involved with such a great project. Rebecca is an amazing architect that really helps set the tone for the quality and character of a project. And I couldn't do it without Nick Hawes and Andy Reese with Northern Engineering. It's such a pleasure to be able to collaborate with Nick and Andy. Their ideas and expertise really help push the limits of sustainability and design. Thank you.
The 9th and final project award goes to Russell Mills Studio for the Jessup Farm Artisan Village. I'd like to invite Craig Russell up to the stage to tell us more about this project. This is a brand new place with paint still drying and finishing touches being worked on. But the committee saw its virtues early on and wanted to have it recognized for its innovative and challenging reuse of historic Johnson farmhouse and working farm buildings. The project creates a great new destination and focal point for this sector of our city and beyond.
All right, thank you. Many of you probably remember driving by this site, seeing this old red brick farmhouse on Timberline Road, kind of sitting above on the crest of the hill, just south of Prospect Road, and thinking over the years, somebody needs to do something with that, right? So I think it was 2010, Councilman Campana, Gino, came to us and said, hey, I want to take that farmhouse and I want to create a neighborhood center for the Bucking Horse development that we were working on with him, which used to be, I think the Johnson Farm, I believe. Anyway, so he said, hey, I want to take that old red farmhouse and I want to make it into a farm to fork restaurant, right? And then not only do I want to do that, I want to take these little outbuildings that you kind of see in the background, we're going to make those into retail spaces. And this was 2010 when developers weren't really doing anything, let alone anything risky. And at that point, we hadn't known Gino for very long, but we kind of said, okay, is this guy for real? And you guys probably know, yeah, he's for real. I mean, he's determined. I think that's one of the great things about this project to me is the level of determination and vision that was set in the very beginning, set the bar for the project, and I think it was held to a pretty high degree. So the vision for this overall for Jessup Farm is really, hey, let's take one of the last kind of remaining agricultural landscapes in Fort Collins, of which there aren't that many, and many of them oftentimes get relegated to these kind of monuments, if you will, They're kind of these remnants that they stand alone in developments. And the vision is really, let's take that and reuse it and make it into this vibrant kind of retail, specialty retail type space that reuses the buildings, which you can see back here. Was a big challenge. You know, these were literally outbuildings that were built as part of a farm complex, obviously not to any commercial standard or any standard for that matter at that point. They did have some incredibly unique qualities though that I think we captured on pretty effectively, and I think this is where Bellissimo really deserves a ton of credit for their tenacity in working with these materials. You can see, for example, the building on the right, which is the old loafing shed for the farm. That was developed into this sort of set of inline retail spaces. But that massive timber was all reused, and then you can see the farmhouse. We did some addition to that in the background, really trying to continue that agrarian spirit and kind of maintain some of that historical sense of place for the project. I think was really the end goal here. And then you can see the old chicken coop back off the left. That was all renovated. Unfortunately, I think the ceilings are about like a Hobbit house height or something. I don't know. Maybe he can. So anyway, the overall, I think, vision of the project, I think you get a sense of reusing the timbers. It's a great example to me of adaptive reuse in Fort Collins. I don't think we have a ton of those examples. It's also, to me, a great example of a truly kind of sustainable objective. I mean, historic preservation, if it's done with the thought of adaptive reuse, to me is very, very conducive to the city's overall goal of sustainability. And I think it dovetails well with that objective. The Farm to Fork restaurant with, in the back, you can see the garden plots that were designed as a component of that. We also wanted to make the space very flexible for multiple events and different types of events. You can see there it fits a fairly large number of people on the overall site, but the two images in the ground reflect some of the edible plants that were planted in the overall site, and then what it's intended to feel like at night, which was definitely a significant part of the program. So thank you. We really appreciate the opportunity. And Gino, if you want to say anything, feel free. Okay. But I think I want to recognize a few people. John Beggs with our office, I think, spent a lot of time on this project, and we all worked, the entire team and Bellissimo collaborated pretty intensively in this project. It's a good thing that was in 2010 because we all had time to do it because it was in the recession. So, and then we definitely want to acknowledge ALM2S, Ian Schuff, who are the architects on the project, Nick Hawes and Andy again for their assistance. Without them, I think this project would have been seriously challenged. And then, last but not least, Bellissimo. I think we will also want to thank you for allowing us to work with you on such a unique project. I mean, I think truly it is one of the more unique projects we've worked on in our career. So, thanks.
Thanks, guys. That brings us to our grand finale. The Hall of Fame Award is for continued and significant contribution to urban design in Fort Collins. This year, we have a special situation with awards going to the 3 founding principals of RB+B Architects, Bill Brenner, Bill Robb, and George Braylig. I understand that most of us don't know how much their work has been part of life in Fort Collins. And tonight's awards may give you a new perspective on some of the places you see around town. RB+B recently made a video as part of their 60th anniversary celebration. We'd like to share that video now to introduce you to our honorees.
Our first job that we really were thrilled about was the Poudre R1 school district. Oh, Bill Brenner, he kept saying to Bill, now we should set goals. What are our goals? Bill Robb and I said just to stay open and meet the budget.
I admire Bill and Eleanor both because they really stuck their neck out to come to work here in 1953 and open their office. All my friends down at CU Architecture School said, "What? You're going up to Fort Collins, that little conservative cow town? How can you ever find something to do up there?" Well, I wish I could say it was because we were smart, but we were lucky.
Well, I came to this office in 1979. It was actually hard for a project, Scotch Pine Shopping Center. Working with the 2 Bills, well, they would both answer when I said Bill. I had a great mentorship from both of them, and I value that immensely. When Bill Robb retired, Bill Brenner and I kind of took over, and that was in about 1986, 1987. Slowly our firm grew, and we were fortunate to have very talented people that we hired, especially those that are my partners at present. Well, our work in sustainability really began in about 2000 when we received an RFP from Poudre School District for a new sustainable prototype elementary school. We decided if we were going to understand this, we were going to do it as an office. So we sent our whole office to CSU to a sustainability course. The long and short of it, we won that competition. We've continued our work in sustainability and we've never looked back.
I remember every Friday we'd take a break and Bill Robb, the founder, would come in and we'd have some pastry or something and we'd sit around for about a half an hour as a group, as a team, and talk about what we were doing. And that tradition, which he started, is still in effect today. We meet every Friday for a nice little break.
Yeah, well, it's rewarding to walk around town and see all the projects that the firm has done. And I come in occasionally to see what's going on in the office, and I make sure that whenever they're serving food, I get down here. I just hope the firm keeps going for another 100 years, and you have to do this thing again.
The spirit of this award is for us to hear from someone who knows the award recipient firsthand. And this year, we are so excited that the RB+B team members embraced this program and committed to joining in the presentations. The first award we'd like to present is for George Braylig, who we understand still has an office, but is trying to avoid it more and more as he flirts with ideas of retirement. We need Ken Field and David Kress, who represent the next generation of principals at the company, to come up to kick off these 3 prestigious awards.
We've been asked to take you back through the story of each of the 3 individuals from present day to the founding of the firm, William B. Robb Architects. So we're going to do this just a little bit backwards. We're going to start with George, work back to Bill, and then get back to the origin of the firm.
So as you saw in the video, it was in 1979 that George was enticed to move his family up north from Denver, where he was currently working, to join the firm that was then known as Robb and Brenner Architects. As he mentioned, he was able to work alongside Bill Brenner on the Scotch Pines Village Shopping Center. This project was key for a few reasons. It sits there kind of quietly, but although it does a great job of presenting itself to the people who are driving along on LeMay or Drake, what it does more importantly is that it provides a community plaza for the neighborhoods that surround it. Depending on which way you look at it, it's either the termination of some of the pedestrian plaza or walkways that move through the neighborhoods, or it's the origin of those that filter back through the neighborhood, but it provides a place for the neighbors to join and gather. One of the things that really helps to make it so timeless is that it's really drawn out of the architectural detailing and the forms of the neighborhood. And as we look at it, and I did take the opportunity today just to drive through again and make sure that the things that I was saying were correct. It's just a wonderfully comfortable plaza, very human scaled, plenty of space for outdoor patios and the retail spaces. And all of this kind of culminated as the city was trying to come up with design guidelines. So this was one of the exemplar projects that was kind of a case study for the Fort Collins land use guidance system document that guided the development standards for the city of Fort Collins for many years. I'm going to jump ahead now a couple of decades. George had opportunity to work with one of his family friends to kind of envision something for the corner of Mountain and Matthews, mixed-use development that was one of the first of its kind in that era. RBB was able to help that client bring this vision to a reality in the design of Moss and Block, project completed in partnership with and anchored by the Home State Bank. As the design proceeded, George and Bill made the decision to move their office down from the 8th floor of the Key Bank Tower to actually become a resident, one of the original tenants of this facility, and we're still there today.
Schoolwork has always been a significant part of our practice. One milestone in George's career was in 1992 when we were hired to design a significant remodel of Poudre High School. George led that project, and that was one of the first projects I got to be project architect on, so that was kind of fun. But as you saw in the video, one of the most important projects to us was the competition for the elementary school at Poudre School District. They decided to hold this design competition coupled with a lot of criteria for environmental design, for sustainable design, and to create a whole new generation of elementary schools at Poudre School District. So that competition we were fortunate to win, mostly because of George. In response to that competition, he led the entire office in researching energy-efficient design, and just as importantly, the design of cutting-edge daylighting solutions. It was a time of incredible design energy in the office when we as architects were realizing that we could actually affect and have a positive effect on the learning process in the schools that we design. They're not just buildings, but they're tools for teaching. And so that, coupled with the energy aspects, these buildings were just incredibly good projects for us and have stood the test of time. Schools that have spun off from Zach are Bacon, Bethke, and Rice Elementaries, all based on that same prototype. These projects received much regional and national attention, but nothing in comparison to what was to come, Fossil Ridge High School. Fossil Ridge was a product of a very, very large collaborative effort between the school district, George leading the design process, and a whole host of different characters that were part of this process. We spent a great deal of time listening and combining our best knowledge of daylighting, of high school academic design, and energy efficiency, things that we learned from those first projects. As a result of that was Fossil Ridge High School. And Fossil Ridge received the 2005 CEFPI McConnell Award for the best high school in the country at that time.
I always found it amazing the way that this particular project kind of took on a marketing life of its own. I think back soon after Fossil Ridge was open to a time when I was on an airplane flying to Washington, D.C. to attend an international school facility design conference. As I was in the air, I was hearing conversations going on around me and quickly realized that half the plane was full of architects from west of Denver, all headed to the same conference. And as we were deboarding, got in a conversation with a couple of them, and they asked, well, what firm are you from? I said, well, RB+B Architects. And as I expected, that didn't really mean anything to them at the time, so I simply followed by saying, Fossil Ridge High School. Oh, yeah, okay, that's the firm that did that school in Fort Collins that's being talked about for sustainability. Just amazing to me that something could have such an instantaneous impact. It not only was mentioned in most of the presentations that year at that conference, but it went on to be published in several magazines nationally, and then we were asked to also insert it into a Chinese interior design magazine as well as an education magazine in New Zealand. So just fabulous the way that that thing just affected so many people, so many districts across the nation.
So this level of recognition has led our firm to design projects in many other communities as well. In Denver, all along the Front Range, and one of the more recent ones being the LEED Platinum Casey Middle School in Boulder, which opened just about a year and a half ago, as well as in Wyoming, Nebraska, and a few other places around.
My entire professional development really happened at the hands of George Brayleg and Bill Brenner. So being able to watch them work as I grew up was just an amazing experience. The thing that comes to mind so much about George is just his constant desire to achieve design perfection, and it really didn't matter what that took. If George woke up in the middle of the night with some better idea on how to solve a particular design detail, well, he'd just get up and head to the office at that time. We'd find him in the morning, unshaven, just scrambling away, doing sketches so that he could have everything set when the crew showed up at 8 to go ahead and implement that change. It really didn't matter if the drawings were due a day later. He just expected that the entire design team and consultant team would pull together and work to make that happen because it was the right thing to do. Alongside the new projects that George did, he had plenty of opportunities to do notable things with clients for facility expansions and then sometimes just breathing new life into old facilities. As you can see in some examples that you might recognize, those were oftentimes buildings that we did originally. This is First Christian Church in Loveland, Spirit of Joy in Fort Collins. First Baptist Church expansion, Oak Street Place, you'll see in a minute. Another project that we did initially, the renovation of the cupboard, and Odell's.
You've already heard BHA talk about Odell and about the role that Rebecca had in that project. George reminded me that he had one small part of that, and that was the Brayleg Rotunda that so we want to give him credit for that. But what it really means, though, is that all of these projects are collaborative affairs between landscape architects, designers, in the office. It's a very collaborative effort, and when you have a large office with lots of people providing input, it really affects the kind of product that you can present. George Brayling.
Thank you guys so much.
Well, gee, thank you very much for this award. I don't know what to say. Fort Collins has really been a great community to practice architecture and design, and many of you here have been a big part of that experience. As David said, I moved to Fort Collins in 1979 with my family, and prior to doing that, we toured a number of cities, a number of other states, looking for an ideal community to raise a family and practice. I really wanted to get in a community of about 250,000 people. Thought that would be an ideal critical mass to really produce some great architecture. But in 1979, Fort Collins fell just a little short of that mark. But I really thought it had a lot of opportunity for growth. And seeing our city develop in such a vibrant, diversified way, twice being listed as the best place to live in the United States was something more than I had ever dreamed. And as our mayor pointed out tonight, they were now listed at the Smithsonian as a city of innovation. So it just keeps going on. But if our city demographers are correct, and I'm fortunate enough to live another 25 years, we're going to see Fort Collins hit that 250,000 mark. So let's hope we do. Again, thank you for this award. I'm very humbled, certainly given the previous recipients, but also because of the two others who received this award tonight. It's my pleasure to tell you about the next recipient for the Fort Collins Urban Design Hall of Fame, my partner, my mentor, my friend, Bill Brenner. Besides being a very good architect, a gifted designer, a great business partner, a strong supporter of community and family, Bill was especially a dedicated mentor to myself, to all of those over the years who've worked for RBSB, and really to many of the Fort Collins architectural community as a whole. When it came to design, Bill emphasized the importance of really listening to the client. He practiced design by not designing a building for a client, but really designing a building with a client. Bill strongly emphasized client-focused quality to design with a strong focus on the end user. He always kept communication at a high level, and he was a strong believer in always being good stewards of the client's budget and created design solutions to get the most value added for the client. Some of the projects evolved from Bill's design philosophy include many of Fort Collins' early government, financial, educational, religious, and multifamily housing projects. Bill particularly enjoyed doing churches. His work in this project type included First United Methodist Church, John the 23rd University Chapel, and St. Luke's Episcopal Church. Here's First United Methodist Church. This is St. Luke's Episcopal Church. I can't remember exactly when this was done, but in the late 70s. His design solution on this church received some national press, and it generated a very notable response from the Associate Director of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, who described St. Luke's as, quote, one of the loveliest examples of contemporary church construction in this country or Europe, unquote. That's probably one of the most notable recognitions RB+B has received for any project throughout our 62 years. Bill was also the author of some of Fort Collins' early master planning, residential and commercial developments such as Lindenwood, Parkwood Meadows, Collindale, Scotch Pines, Oak Ridge, and Stewart Professional Park. David commented on the Scotch Pines development, but I just want to trump that too. And it's such a great project, and Bill really had that concept all fully thought out when I came to Fort Collins. But it really set the tone for a corner that had different type of development on each corner, and was used and illustrated in many conferences. I know in the land use, the guidance system used it as kind of a landmark example to develop in ways other than just straight zoning. So great project, great working with Bill as that introductory project when I came to the firm. Bill was, again, our firm mentor and was really a stickler in quality control, especially especially in reviewing drawings and specifications, making sure quality was not compromised. He also put a lot of time in administering the construction process to ensure the client's project was constructed at the highest standards of the profession. I think it's safe to say Bill did his diligence in this area a bit higher than most any architect, which over the years earned him a high level of respect in the construction community. And if you're an architect, that's a hard thing to do. Bill's probably the only guy I know who could walk on a job site, tell a mason he had to take down a wall, and then have him over for supper that night. Bill's mentoring certainly has been a big part of RB+B's longevity. As of 2015, the firm is in their 62nd year of practice, or better put, 62 years young. Bill also encouraged young intern architects to become registered and was a great resource to many young architects as they studied for their architectural exam. This contributed to RB's growth to 24 people with 15 licensed architects. Bill also saw it important, in order to continue the firm's longevity, to bring in new leadership with a diversity in age. I was fortunate enough to be Bill's partner. The firm is now led by 4 new principals and 3 senior associates. Bill also believed in the importance of serving our community. He worked on a number of projects in Poudre School District for many years. This is Rocky Mountain High School. But through that effort, over the years and that experience, Bill, or RB+B, was selected in 2004 as the Colorado AIA Firm of the Year. And besides design excellence, RB's selection for this award included one of the passions that Bill Brenner always believed in, and that was giving back to the community. And so part of our award when we received that AIA Colorado Firm of the Year was for community service and pro bono work. That was a really special award to get. So in closing, this is just a small bit of what I know about Bill Brenner. Thank you.
Thanks so much, George. Bill, will you come up and accept your award?
We first came to town in 1959. I interviewed with, closer to the mic, okay. I interviewed with Bill, and he said, yeah, you can come to work for me. So I started in June of 1959, and Bill came, or Lucy, my wife, came to one of our meetings with Bill, and Bill had this huge black beard and mustache, and Lucy looked at him and said, I don't know whether we've made a mistake coming up here to Fort Collins. But Bill was an active member of the Kiwanis Club, and in 1959, the city was celebrating one of their centennials. They have them all the time. And Bill's job was to lead horses and pull a wagon for the Kiwanis Club in this centennial parade. So that was Lucy's first introduction to Bill.
But he had nice eyes.
Oh, thank you, yes. Lucy looked through all that black beard and hair and everything and said, he's got twinkly eyes. I think we're in good shape. Well, Bill opened the office in 1953, and we've talked a little bit about that. His was the first local full-time architectural office in the city after Montezuma Fuller was doing his thing about the turn of the century. His first project was the result of Waldo Riffenberg, a member of the school board, saying, look, why don't we give this young guy a chance at a project? And so that was Putnam Elementary School. And it turned out that Poudre School District liked that project so much, and the people at Putnam used it to such good advantage that they gave Bill Barton and Moore pretty close thereafter. And after that, it was O'Day and Beatty, and the list goes on, and RB+B is still doing schools for Poudre School District today. About the same time, Guy Palmas, who was, let's see, who was Guy Palmas? He was, Eleanor, tell me. He was city manager, thank you. Guy Palmas, city manager, hired Bill to do the first new city hall. And this is the Y-shaped yellow brick building that's on the corner of LaPorte Avenue and House Street. And that took care of all the city offices at that time. Thank you, somebody's showing pictures. That took care of all the city offices at that time except the fire station. Well, that building is still in use today, and in addition, Bill Robb and the firm did the new City Hall, which is right adjacent to it on the same site, and which Mr. Mayor and our City Council sit in the council chambers every week, every 2 weeks. Anyway, a lot, maybe more than Mr. Mayor would like. In 1959, in 1959, Bill was hired to be the architect for doubling the size of St. Joseph's Catholic Church on the corner of Mountain and Howes. And Bill did a beautiful job. The seamless addition that he did, people that come into town now would never know that that was a littler church at one time. The whole thing looks like it was done together. And that's when I came to work for Bill. And unlike George and Ken and David and Rebecca and Corky, these guys all came to us with years of experience under their belt. under their belt. But I came to the firm right out of, if you'll pardon the expression, CU's architecture school. So the first thing that Bill had me doing when I got there was basement stair details for the stairs going down to the basement. I guess Bill wanted to see whether I really knew what to do with a pencil and a T-square. So I had trouble really recognizing the description of me that George gave. All I can think of is that I learned an awful lot between 1959 and 1979 when George got here. Well, Bill Robb's reputation and workload were growing, so he had to spend a lot more time at the business end of things. So our task was to find young people who shared his commitment to quality and professional services. And we worked hard to do that, and we had a lot of great young people, many of them having worked at other architecture offices before, coming into the office. A lot of them stayed for a couple of years and then said, I can do it better, and they went out and started their own firm. And that was fine. That was fine. We had some good people working for us. In 1968, we had 4 professionals on the staff, including Bill and me, and 2 of our 4 professionals were killed in a small airplane accident, and that really provided a challenge for Bill and for Eleanor and for all of us that were still there. We worked hard. Bill, who generally worked day and night anyway, continued to do that, and we got out a couple of projects that weren't quite finished when the 2 boys were killed. I'm not talking about these projects. You probably know a lot of them. I recognize some of these people up here. The PowerPoint that was prepared with Ken and George and David doing all of the work, I didn't do any of it, was really good to look at. And it really describes what the changes have been in the firm since 1953 to the present. But there's one thing missing in all of the presentation that we've done to this point, and that thing is the importance of Eleanor Robb in launching the firm. Eleanor was our office manager. I shouldn't say ours, because I wasn't even there yet. Eleanor was our office manager, answered the telephone, typed everything, including the specs, bound them, ran them off on the mimeograph and bound them, and then got them to the contractors who were bidding on our work or building our buildings. And she also did the bookkeeping and made sure that all of us got paid twice a month. I think that was wonderful. The other thing that Bill and Eleanor did, they had 6 kids between them, and that was enough to keep St. Joseph's School and Poudre School District going for a while. but now they've got some help. Anyway, for Bill, for Ken, for David, and for Rebecca and Corky, and really all our staff, we really have a great deal of gratitude to Bill and Eleanor for sticking their necks out and starting the firm, which has been so much fun for all of us that have worked there, and a lot of work too, but it's been such a great, provided so many great projects for the community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill. Eleanor, would you like to come up to accept the award on Bill's behalf? Thank you so much, Eleanor. We're so grateful that you were able to be here with us tonight. That brings us to the end of tonight's ceremony. I hope you see the city of Fort Collins a little differently as you move through it after learning about these wonderful projects and hearing from their creators. Thank you so much all for being here, and see you in 2017.